We are already at the end of August in 2025, and I cannot believe that there are so many of you that have not yet invested into ranged combat, specifically into engineering, Gajah Mada and Gonzalo. If you have not bit the bullet and said, you know what, screw it, I'm going all in on Siege, I don't know what you're thinking because, like, dude, like, let's take a look at some of these reports from this KVK. This is just insane. Now, this is an instance where I'm fighting with all my other marchers in the field, and this troop is just sitting there, debuffing the enemy, getting me kills, consistently doing a ton of AoE damage. It's absurd. Now, yes, I've invested a lot into ranged combat. I have built an entire full legendary set. I got very lucky on this crit for an additional 7.5% attack. That is amazing. But overall, like, these were all luck. This is all luck. And if you have not, again, bit the bullet and invested into Siege, you are doing your account in your kingdom specifically a disservice by not investing into ranged combat. And some people might think, well, Gainz, people that use ranged combat are just kill point leeches. They just want to get a ton of kills and get really good trades like the one I just showed you right here. And that might be true. Some people might only be investing into ranged combat to get really good trades like this, to brag in Lost Kingdom chat. That's not what this video is about. This video is not just about how many kills you're going to get with Gajah Mada and Gonzalo, but how much you're going to debuff the enemy and buff yourself. Now let's go over these skill kits, because the best march that you can use in 2025 right now is Gajah Mada paired with Gonzalo. Gajah being the primary if you want to last longer on the field, Gonzalo being the primary if you want to do the most amount of damage first, but not last as long. And the reason why is because Gonzalo is the one that does the AoE. So if you're in an instance where the troops are moving around, you might not be able to get his skill cycle off. Having him primary could be better because his circular AoE skill will fire off first before Gajah Mada heals you. But Gajah Mada primary, you'll do more damage long term because he's going to heal you, and then Gonzalo is going to do more damage. Plus, you're going to be sustainable on the field and last a lot longer. But with that being said, let's jump into these skills. First of all, starting with Gajah Mada, his first skill. This commander's troop deals 10% more ranged normal damage. And whenever their troop launches a ranged basic attack, deals an extra ranged smite damage to the target, damage factor 500, reduced by 50% if not within melee range of the target. Now that's a lot of words. Basically what that means, you're going to do more range damage. This is going to boost Gajah and is going to boost Gonzalo. Plus, doing a little bit of damage as well whenever you use a ranged basic attack. His second skill. You gain 15% march speed, which I don't care a lot about, but 40% health. That is substantial. That is huge. The 40% health, crazy. His third skill. While in ranged mode, this commander deals 25% more ranged normal damage. So again, another boost to ranged normal damage. This is different than basic normal damage. Whenever their troop launches a ranged basic attack, while in ranged mode, this commander's troop deals 25% more ranged normal damage. So you need to be in the V formation and in ranged combat. You can't be marching around doing this. Whenever their troop launches a ranged basic attack, it has a 10% chance to mighty heal a portion of its slightly wounded units with a mighty healing factor of 600 and deal extra ranged smite damage to the target, damage factor 200. So again, like I said, very, very tanky. You're going to do a ton of healing. And if I show you this report again, you can see I had 456,000 units in this march. I had 104,000 sev wounds and 488,892 slightly wounded. So that does not add up to 456. You can see I did a lot of healing in this march because I still had 183,000 units remaining at the end of this report. So you're going to stay in the field a very long time if you are using these correctly. Now his fourth skill, he gains 25% attack, and whenever this commander's troop deals ranged smite damage, so basically all the time, the target loses 20% defense and 15% march speed for the next 3 seconds. Now the biggest downside of this is the 10-second cooldown. However, like I said, you're going to be debuffing the crap out of your enemy because 20% defense and 15% march speed for 3 seconds is pretty substantial in a murder ball. Now looking at his expertise, you can see that you do boost your first skill. So you can see you're going to deal an additional 10% more ranged normal damage, and you are going to get a bigger mighty heal factor, and you are also going to do that extra range smite damage. So what does that mean? His expertise is definitely worth it because you're going to do a lot more damage. you're going to get boosted a lot more damage, and you're going to do more healing. So overall, he's a must max commander if you are going to be using him. Now jumping over to our Gonzalo, you can see his first skill. Like I said, if you want to do the AoE damage immediately, put him as the primary. He does range smite damage to up to 3 enemy troops. He is the only ranged commander that does AoE damage. That is important, and that is why he is a must-use commander if you're using Siege. The biggest downside here is that you're only doing it to 3 enemies, but that is still very nice. And it's centered around a target troop, damage factor of 2400. Now, the biggest thing here is that it is circular damage. So you're doing damage to basically anybody within that circle, up to 3 enemy units. And every additional target does reduce the damage by 15%. But 2400 damage is pretty substantial to 3 enemy units. For reference, that is the same damage factor as BQ. That's pretty substantial. Now his second skill, you gain 20% attack and 15% march speed. I don't really care about march speed when it comes to Siege. Obviously, yeah, being able to get away quickly or getting to the fight faster is important, but when you're mostly just sitting there doing damage, it doesn't really matter. And then while in ranged mode, so pretty much all the time, you deal 10% more ranged smite damage. So you can tell between Gonzalo and Gajah, you're doing a ton of extra smite damage. It's really, really nice. And his third skill, this commander's siege units gain 10% defense, so pretty negligible. But whenever this commander's troop uses an active skill, it has a 50% chance to gain 1 stack of the Vigilant effect for 8 seconds. This effect can stack up to 2 times, and its duration resets whenever it gains another stack. So whenever this troop is hit with a basic attack, it will consume 1 stack of Vigilant to deal ranged smite damage to the attacker and disarm them for 1 second. Disarming is pretty important because not many commanders are able to disarm you. Now, obviously it's only 1 second, but also a 1 second cooldown. So this skill is pretty cool, especially if you are getting targeted by another siege. This can be very beneficial. Now his fourth skill, this commander's troop takes 20% less ranged counterattack damage. That's really nice because for the most part, unless you're getting hit by siege or getting swarmed down because your murder ball fell apart, you are taking less counterattack damage. And that's basically all the damage you take if you're doing everything right. And whenever this troop is hit with a basic attack, has a 10% chance to gain 40% bonus to ranged normal damage dealt for 3 seconds. That is huge. Now his expertise, this commander's troop deals 15% more ranged normal damage, and if the current target's commander of the troop is not within melee range, this commander's troop gains 20% more range smite damage. So if you are not right next to them attacking, you're going to deal additional 20% more range smite damage. But if you are hitting them, if they're hitting you, you're dealing an additional 30% more counterattack damage. So what does that mean? Anti-swarm. If you are getting swarmed down, Gonzalo is going to punish them. That is important because sometimes you do get swarmed down. Let me show you a report like that where it did go on for quite a while, but I did get swarmed down at the end. And you can see even when I got swarmed down, I still traded pretty nicely. You can see these numbers. Obviously, like, yeah, I'm trading negative, but I'm still punishing them. I'm still doing damage while this is happening. And when you look at the overall report, 7.9 million to 2.6 million. You can see how much healing was done as well. You can see how long this report went on. Obviously, 50 million troops remaining because I got swarmed down like crazy. 83 different armies swarming me. And you can see this one right here, 37.5 to 99.7 during this swarm. You can see all the marches that eventually came over and swarmed. So this is the total swarm report where, like, this is where they got most of their kills in this report. So 554,000 to 1.3 mil. That's pretty crazy because then if you look at the total report, subtract 550 and subtract 1.3, that means I had 7.4 to 1.3. So before that swarm, this trade was 7.4 million to 1.3 million trade in terms of kill points. That is absolutely berserk. That is crazy that you can trade that well with Siege. Now again, I do have very, very good gear and very good armaments, but if you are somebody that has considered investing into Siege, this is your reminder to do it because it is 100% worth it. You do not need the full legendary set. Either you can go for the purple set, you can do a budget set to start. You don't need to have all this done in order to use it. I would recommend maxing Gajah first and then slowly investing into your Gonzalo and slowly maxing him out as well. Starting out with his first skill, you want to max that out, and then going on to his second skill, maxing that out, starting with 5511. That is what I would recommend. And then max out that third skill, max out the fourth, and then go for the expertise eventually. But again, make sure you guys are investing in a siege, because it doesn't just benefit you, but it benefits the entire kingdom and it benefits your murder ball. So let me know what you guys think down below, if you have invested in a siege or not, or if you're planning on it, or if you're not planning on it. Let me know. I'm curious to see what you guys think. Thanks again for checking out the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.